while I was in the room with Richie, we began to pray over him. This was last rites. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
I can't tell you what went through my head.
Went down towards the entrance, and on the way down there, I said, I have to stop. I had no warnings, no anything. I fell to the ground, dead.
I can't begin to tell you the thoughts that went through my head. I felt for a pulse, there was no breathing, and he had the cell phone, so I reached for the cell phone. I started to dial 911, and as I'm dialing, I'm screaming, help, help. I mean, these miracles were happening. These people were coming to help us, to no avail. They couldn't get him breathing again. Shortly after, the ambulance came. Pocono Mountain Regional EMS were just unbelievable. They were wonderful. They got there very, very quickly. And some of them I knew, and they did not exchange pleasantries with me, did not look at me, just went right to my husband. The word attentive is not good enough. They were so
Professional.
So involved in this that I felt if anybody's going to bring him back, they will. And they got out the defibrillator, and that took a while, and they used, I believe they said full power. I'm not familiar with this, and they did get him back. And I started to breathe better, and then they lost him again. As we got to the hospital, the paramedic who brought him back a couple times, she said, I'm Jody, and she hugged me, and she said, they'll take good care of him. We found 3 blocked arteries, one at 99%, one hanging by a thread, and the aorta, which is the widowmaker, was totally blocked at 100%. I was told they had to operate on him immediately, otherwise he would die. But they couldn't operate on him immediately because he was on a breathing tube. He had to be breathing on his own. And the next thing he says to me, as I'm looking at him, he says to me,
Have you been paying the bills?
And that's when doctor said, he's back. And this was just a miracle. So I said to him, I'll be here when you come out. No goodbyes, I'll be here, because I knew he was coming out. I knew I was in this hospital, in this cocoon that was gonna take care of him. The door opens and Dr. Zama walks in with this big smile, shaking his head. He said, I've never seen anything like this. He said, your husband, what he went through, this man who was dead, who was, for 6 days, we put it all in God's hands. He said, and now, he said he held his own. He said, we put his heart back in, and he pimped up, his heart started beating. He said, go home and make your plans. You've got another 50 years.
I'm gonna be a very old man.
I don't remember the initial impact. I thought I was fine. Like I I didn't think like anything serious happened to me. I thought they were just being safe, like the EMS people were just being really cautious, but yeah, I didn't know the extent of my injuries at all. I was merging onto the 80 West, and there's a car in front of me. There's nobody in the slow lane that I remember, and right at the end of the on-ramp, the car in front of me just stopped, just slammed on the brakes. I tried to stop too, but I knew there wasn't going to be enough time, so I just tried to swerve around the car. But the car, my car, just did a 90-degree turn right into the median, and there happened to be a car in the fast lane, and he hit me right in the driver's side door. The driver's side door is like completely just crushed in, and I was able to get out through the passenger side door. Like I was able to walk around a little bit. Apparently I spoke to the police officer, but I don't have any memory of that. I remember the paramedics came, and as I remember like bits and pieces. They finally told me to lay down, and then they started cutting off my pants, which I was like a little bit nervous, but I guess I knew it was like sort of procedure. I just remember how calm they made me. I didn't feel like anything was wrong. They didn't make it seem like anything was bad. It just everything they did made me feel safe and calm. And during the whole ride there, they were still just really, what's the right word? I guess as accommodating as you could be during an experience like that. And it just really helped. I'm so lucky to be here. I ruptured my diaphragm, and then as it ruptured, it pulled or sucked up my stomach, my spleen, and my liver. So they had to do a laparotomy. So they cut me open from like chest to belly button and put everything back in place. And then they had to stitch up the diaphragm, and then put it in the chest tube just so that the diaphragm wouldn't deflate. I was in the hospital for 8 days total. If Dr. Rosler wasn't here to perform the surgery for me, I would have had to have been shipped to Lehigh or to another hospital close by. And if my spleen would have ruptured, or it could have really been a close call, depending on how quickly I got there and how busy that hospital was and the situation. So yeah, I'm able to live.
I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have any other warning signs. I was not feeling great, and for a couple weeks, and I was getting up from the meeting. I tried to get up, and I start to fall. And one of the guys caught me and told me to sit down. I was suffering a major stroke. The ambulance, when they got there, there were two EMTs that were staffing the ambulance. I was in the ambulance, and I was wondering why aren't they going? Get me to the hospital. And it was that time that they were taking with me that really made a huge difference in my recovery. I was transported to Pocono Medical Center. It was something like an old science fiction movie. It has a screen on it, and this robot said, "Can you tell me your name?"
can you lift your arm? I could do this. Could you lift your other arm? I couldn't. I was paralyzed on this side of my body. And from that time, he said, okay, we need him down here. From the time my meeting ended at 8 o'clock in the morning until the time I had the ambulance treatment, the Pocono emergency treatment, and receiving care in a room in Jefferson was 2.5 hours. By time I was in that room at Jefferson, I began to regain control of my right side of my body. Again, I'm 44 at that time. I'm 45 now. My daughter is 9 years old and turning 10, and I would have missed it. And it is something that I'm forever thankful and grateful for.